As I said before, Moses' life, there's a lot written about it, and it's a little bit overwhelming, honestly, to consider what to share. But I thought with the Lord's help, maybe we would start from reading from Acts chapter 7. I know there's certainly much written in the book of Exodus and the Pentateuch with respect to his life here in Hebrews 11, but I thought I'd start in Acts chapter 7 and start reading in verse 20. In which time Moses was born and was exceeding fair, and nourished up in his father's house 3 months. And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in words and in deeds. And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed, and smote the Egyptian. For he supposed his brethren would have understood how that God by his hand would deliver them, but they understood not. And the next day he showed himself unto them as they strove, and would have set them at one again, saying, Sirs, ye are brethren? Why do ye wrong one another? But he that did his neighbor wrong thrust him away, saying, Who made thee a ruler and a judge over us? Wilt thou kill me as thou didst the Egyptian yesterday? Then fled Moses at this saying, and was a stranger in the land of Midian, where he begat 2 sons. I'm sure that those years were deeply impactful to Moses for at least as long as he was nursed by his mother, and planted seeds, no doubt, that carried an impact for years to come. But we know that Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. It says here that he was mighty in acts and in deeds. And it says he was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. And with this time in his life, he was probably in line to the throne of Pharaoh himself. And he really enjoyed, in many respects, all that the world could possibly offer him at that stage in his life. And yet Moses, after a period of time, began to feel the emptiness of it all. We know that when he reached full 40 years of age, it came into his heart to visit his brethren. He learned what many learn, and that is that the world really has nothing to offer. It started with Moses refusing to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. That refusal really set in motion for really what followed. I thought about it that with respect to him, he perhaps could have refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, but yet remained in the place that he was. But we know that that is not what he did. But had he remained in that, some would have said that could have been the reasonable choice. He could have remained there and tried to assert his influence with Pharaoh and those in high authority in the land to perhaps bring about the possible setting free of the Israelites from their time of bondage. But he didn't do that. He made a choice, and he made the choice to ultimately associate himself with God's people. He could have remained with one foot in and one foot out, but that is not the path that he chose. The path that he chose was to suffer affliction with the people of God. And it was really faith that caused or to lead him out of the place that he was to place himself in association with God's people. Better to serve the Lord with those that are despised amongst the Lord's own than to be in the highest courts of the land in association with Pharaoh. We know that no doubt there was satanic power associated with that rule, but Moses did not feel at home there. And so it came into his heart one day to visit his brethren. I don't know the full exercise of his heart before that time, what led him to go out, but he, I'm sure, began to become more keenly aware of what was going on and how his people were being treated. He knew that he was a Hebrew by birth, that these were his people. And so he went out one day, as we know the story, and saw these two men fighting and ended up taking the life of the Egyptian. Moses really thought at that time that perhaps God was going to use him to bring about the deliverance of God's people. But the means by which he went about it really showed that he had a lot to learn, as he really acted in the flesh in the manner that he did. And the next day, when he saw two more Hebrews fighting, it became clear to him that it had been seen and that this had been witnessed, and Pharaoh was going to find out, and he did. And Moses experienced what it was to be rejected by his brethren. And it caused him to flee into the land of Midian as a result, because he knew that there was probably going to be a price on his head for what he had done. But Moses had a lot to learn. In Hebrews 11, his faith is commended. And one of the things that is commended there is that he considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, because it says there that he was looking forward really to the reward, or the recompense of reward.
Days of Moses' life, please continue to the link below or follow the next segment over on Common Thoughts of Christ on the YouTube channel or your favorite podcast platform. And we look forward to learning more about Moses as he grows into the next phase of his life and how God deals with him.